Okay, so I think watch yesterday's show, okay? If you watch yesterday's show, you can see, and that was what, episode 66, if I'm not mistaken, of For Canon's Sake. And I talk about how to sit up here and act as if this is just merely a private institution or even group of that are going in the route that they are going in terms of the recent purges, you're being disingenuous. Especially with what's happening right now, considering that it was first orchestrated by way of state agents and people protected by way of the state. If you remember, Michelle Obama's of the world and what have you were calling on these tech companies to basically do exactly this. And you had all these Democrats in office, all of these blue check marks who are connected to the state in some kind of way, who are getting out there and telling people that basically if you house these folks that think differently than us, then you're part of the problem. And of course, the excuse is always that they have excited violence. So the reason why I want to throw that out there first is because we have to have an honest conversation about it. We can't sit up here and just get towards like we're at the ending and we see what happened in terms of the consequences of all of these things as they develop. And then you look at that and you say that's representative of the general scale of things right now, when it's not. You can't just sit here and ignore the precedent. You can't ignore things that have happened prior to that instance. And we have to be honest with ourselves. Now, look, it'd be one thing if there was some sort of consistency by way of the people that were calling. And let's just be completely honest. What we're seeing is a purge of people who, and it isn't just Trump supporters from what I've been seeing. It's been people that have been against the grain. This just kind of seemed to give them an excuse to do that. And what you saw was, okay, the claim is that these people incited violence. It was why they got Trump up out of there, off of Twitter, for example. So inciting of violence, that is the claim right there, okay? And this is all out of response to the party that they threw at the Capitol building, which was heavily dramatized, to sit up there and call a bunch of basically 99% of them were unarmed. I'm still looking for the receipts on this whole pipe bomb thing. There's people that keep talking about it. Like I've said, it says Fed Boy all over it because of all the phones and stuff that were going off there, all of the things that are being filmed. We only have like these, okay, there was a pipe bomb over here and there's a picture of it, but there's absolutely no evidence of anybody that actually went and did it that was a part of this group. So to me, that has Fed Boy written all over it, and it sounds really good to try to justify what it is that they are doing. But for the most part, none of those guys were armed. They weren't dressed. They weren't equipped for some sort of battle, which for people to call that a siege or this insurrection is dramatism. Let's just call it what it is. It's flat out dramatism. Even with some of the deaths, like I don't know if they're withholding that information, but I still haven't seen. I was looking for it last night. I'm like, okay, with this police officer getting hit supposedly with this what is it, fire extinguisher, right? Where's the footage? Like, there's no footage. I have not seen it. If you have it, please send it my way and I will correct myself without any issue. Haven't seen it. But police officer died after the fact. He wasn't like beat to death with it. They didn't even say that was happening. It was just somebody threw a fire extinguisher, hit him in the head, and then he died after the fact, which, again, I want to see the receipts. When you're dealing with the federal government, to take everything that they say at face value, you're being stupid. I'm just saying. So if they got the receipts, I would certainly love to see them. Not saying that it didn't happen. I'm just saying I haven't seen any of the receipts. But nonetheless, a bunch of guys and grandmas, dude bros and grandmas going to the Capitol, kicking their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. It's not a friggin' insurrection. Like, come on, you think all these guys that are armed would have drove up there if they really were trying to overtake the government? That's exactly what they would have attempted to do, and they would have been strapped to the gills. Not, okay, we got police officers letting them in and all sorts of, like, which is kind of akin to what happened. It was actually more conflict here than what it was when the Women's March took over the Hart Building. They just let them through for real. At least there was some conflicts in some instances, but then for the most part, they just let them in, and they walk in single file line between velvet rope. But it's some damn insurrection. Like you're dramatizing this, and this is what I'm talking about being dishonest about what's going on. I really don't care what side of you or what side you're on when it comes to the political spectrum. But getting back on track, kind of went down a rabbit hole there. But getting back on track, you would have a point if you were being consistent. The tech companies, that is. But they're not. And this is what's perhaps, I know, frustrating for some of you guys, because I feel you on that, and that you sit and watch all of what's played out over the last, months after the George Floyd thing. When you're talking entire blocks burned down. When you consider what was happening in Minnesota or Minneapolis, and what had been happening all across the country. Where you talking all of the things that they're claiming happened now, where you had people that were vandalizing both state and federal buildings. That's exactly what they did that, and it's documented. That happened post George Floyd. When you talk about people dying, more people died out of the riots than what happened at the Capitol building. Not my opinion. That is a fact. Talking billions of dollars worth of actual, and that's talking about death. It's not talking about the mass amounts of different injuries and stuff because of people being assaulted or attacked and needing to go to the hospital. We've seen the videos like that. It's almost textbook gaslighting, because it's like they want you to pretend as if that shit didn't happen. Like as if your eyes and all the footage. Great Elijah Schaefer over at Blaze TV, one of my colleagues, been on the ground. I'm seeing people get beat up, right? Get beat up for not being on their side, and they act like that's not even a thing. Now what's happening all across the country? More so, you got more people die. You also had your beloved federal cathedrals being people throwing stuff at them and damaging property. You had more people die, more property damage. And it happened at a wider scale. And there was never a claim that any of the leftists that were cheering them on, including these gigantic corporate entities, not just the tech companies, other corporate entities who were cheering them on. So they wanted you either to excuse all of the turmoil, they wanted you to excuse it, or they wanted to justify it. Well, this is making you feel uncomfortable. Well, it's just property. They were saying all of those things in response to people having their businesses burned to the ground, people being assaulted, and all of that conflict. Now, the only difference is their cause, or what they claim the reason it is that they're doing that, they think that that's justified. They just won't come out and say it. So it's okay to attack innocent people in the event that you do that, but you kick your feet up on at the cathedral, then that's a problem. Though 2 years ago, they took over. This is the hypocrisy that I'm talking about. It was never a claim that there was an insurrection or a claim that they were violating this sort of governmental process that they worship at the altar. When the Women's March literally said, they were promoting it on all their forms of social media, saying, we are going to storm the Capitol. We are going to take over the Capitol. And they went and took over the Hart building. That's exactly what they did. There was no claim, though, again, because there was no conflict. There was really no conflict there between them and the police for the most part, because they just let them go. But there was never even any claim that that was a problem because of what the cause was. That was with Kavanaugh and all that. That's okay. Those are the approved things that you can do. But they want you to act as if none of that's happened. No matter how much footage. I got an update right here. This just happened not too long ago, where a bunch of Antifa cats, which apparently was a myth, or rather you had people co-signing everything it is that you do. They surrounded these Trump supporters. Again, they're the aggressors. You're seeing it develop right here. One of the cats is going to spray them with something right there. And then at the, towards the latter half of this, they start beating up on them. This is just happening. They want you to pretend like this isn't a thing, guys. Who is to blame for inciting this violence? This just happened. This is out of San Diego, California, right? So this is why I'm like, I get the frustration because you're seeing that develop, and you saw that happen over the course of the last 6 months. And they want you to act like you're the crazy one, like that didn't happen. More people died, more property damage happened over a wider period of time. And so it wasn't just a day, or it happened all across the country. These types of instances. Politicians authorize it. Blue check marks authorized it. Blue check marks said it was good that you were doing that because police brutality, all of that was fine. They want you to act like it didn't happen. And this is why this has nothing to do with inciting violence. And I don't care where you're at on the political spectrum. If you can't even concede that point, you're being disingenuous. I'm seeing even libertarians get it wrong on this, acting like, well, both sides. This ain't no both sides. This is clearly slanted one way. You can't even acknowledge that. That is clearly slanted one way, that these tech companies, particularly the social media companies, have a bent slant when it comes to their politics and how they enforce whatever rules it is that they claim to enforce. Like, we should be able to acknowledge that. That's just the honest to God truth. And they coordinate. They say, okay, hey, y'all were inciting violence. That's the excuse that they're that's what they're saying happened, right? They're inciting violence. So basically ignore everything that happened, not, just months ago. Just completely ignore that. All that violence doesn't even matter. All the blue check marks that authorize that and co-sign that, it doesn't even matter. It's like it didn't happen. So when you see videos actually of it happen, or you were actually physically there on the ground, they want you to pretend as if the shit don't exist. They want you to pretend like it don't exist. All of what you said, or what you're claiming that happened in terms of inciting of violence, happened to a larger degree over a longer period of time, over a wider spread geographical area. And it's like it didn't happen. There has been no consequence to them doing that. There's no banning. There's no taking them off social media platform, removing them from your web services. None of that. It didn't happen. And it's like, are they living in another dimension? I had one guy on my Twitter, which, yes, I'm still on, that was like, I don't recall any Democrats. He said something along the lines that he didn't recall of any Democrats inciting basically this violence. And I'm sitting here like, you are living in another dimension. You are seeing what you want to see. You're in the Matrix, perhaps. And if we can't be honest about that, then I don't know. And then it's crazy that y'all still want to share governments with these types of people who can't even be honest with what your eyes see and what objectively exists. As in, like, there's nothing to debate here. People got killed at the George Floyd riots. People's property got damaged at the George Floyd riots. More people died as a result of those riots, post George Floyd riots. Those are not my opinions. That's not my opinion. Like, that's not up for debate, guys. It's not up for dispute. None of that is up for dispute. It is an objective, verifiable truth. And they want you to act as if it didn't happen. And this is why I'm not letting them make it when it comes to that. Somebody's got to point it out. Y'all can sit here and pretend like you give a damn about inciting violence, but unless you're calling for the people who had been doing just that when it came to the post-George Floyd thing, because this is the thing, this is the hilarious thing. If you're going to say, well, they didn't incite the violence, it's just people that were connected to those groups that decided to destroy everything, you'd have to admit the same thing for Donald Trump and his colleagues. Because it's not like Donald Trump or his colleagues ever said, hey, go storm the Capitol building. Like, he didn't tell them to go do that. And flip and kick your feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. He didn't tell them to go do that. He didn't tell them to go do that. Again, We're not talking about opinions. I don't give a fuck about how you feel about Donald Trump. I don't care. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I can think he's a sucker, which I do, but that's irrelevant. I'm just talking about the objective truth here. So my analysis has always been is that the only problem is that it was their cathedral, and this a shared kind of group of opinions and political positions, and the reasoning that became a problem with what happened over the course. It wasn't even a day. With what happened at the Capitol building recently. But it's a coordinated effort led by, influenced by agents of the state right now, okay? To sit here and act like it was just a private institution or it's just groups of private institutions doing that is dishonest. Now, again, I'm not calling for them to be regulated. I'm not like these idiotic GOP crackheads who sitting there talking about nationalizing Twitter. I don't think y'all remember, and I'm gonna end on this note because I mentioned this in the previous previous show. Twitter was damn near becoming obsolete prior to 2015. Anyway, it is the one platform of the big tech platforms that is an alternative for being completely removed. It's mainly because of its lack of monetization, which it does have monetization, but you know, you have, when you couple that with the stuff that they're doing right now, Twitter can get ran into the ground. I want you to understand that. Let it fail. Don't get in their way. Just let it fail. They're going to do everything they can to try to continue to legitimize it and prop it up, but that don't mean nothing if the user base decides that they want to remove themselves from it. They'll try to knock the competition, and really that's all it's going to take is another rich Elon Musk. I think that's who's going to do it. We talked about this on my stream. Could you imagine if Elon said, you know what? How about this? I'm the richest man in the world basically right now. How about this? I'm going to come up with my own app store, web services, and social media platform, and y'all can go fuck yourself. Like they're one alternative away from something like that happening. So let them fail. Let them fail. Let them. It is not a guarantee that Twitter will. I know that they're going to try to pull all the stops. We see what's happening with Parler. I get that. And I totally understand that. But that website, people forget, it's short-sighted. They forget that Twitter was on its way out. They were on their way out. Anyway, and you're seeing shares, you're seeing stuff go down because people aren't comfortable with this. Let them fail. Let them fail. No, fucking idiot GOP crap. They don't know. They don't get it. I'm sitting there reading this. Oh, well, it's gonna be on a GOP platform to nationalize Twitter. I'm like, you guys don't even get it, and that's why you continue to lose, idiots. But to close with the segment, they want you to pretend as if it didn't exist. And this is why I think instead of y'all focusing on the 230, Section 230, worrying about all of that crap, I just don't understand why it seems like nobody with money is trying to take it to their lack of consistency, which comes to, because it's a contractual agreement, whether you agree with it or not, the terms of service. They're not holding up their end of the bargain, and they're influencing, or more so they're influenced by their political positions. And this is what leads to what it is that we have right now. And that is where politics, they're leading with their politics to enforce their supposed terms of service. We're not even that far removed from them doing everything that they claim that Trump's doing. They did it to a larger degree, or Trump supporters and the people that enabled Trump. They're doing it to a larger degree. They destroyed your businesses. They killed more people. Again, these aren't opinions, guys. These are facts. But they want you to pretend as if it didn't happen. That, to me, is what you lead with. But to act like this is about inciting violence, it has nothing to do with it. No, their cathedral, you took it to their cathedral. They had a problem with it because of the politics. That's it. And I wish they were just honest in saying that. It has nothing to do with any of that other crap, because when those groups, the Antifa groups, Antifa types, or the guys that were shouting Black Lives Matter, which they go hand in hand anyway, were setting things ablaze. Like the Capitol didn't even get set on fire. They were back in the Capitol building the same night. That's how least amount of damage happened, right? It ain't like they went and shot the bad boy up and burned everything. That wasn't what happened. But they did do that, burning spots down, looting everything out of the bad boy. That happened. That happened with the George Floyd protest. But apparently it's like it didn't happen, and you're the crazy person. You're playing a rigged game, and that's what I want you to realize more than anything. That's why I'm so hell-bent on decentralization and trying to get y'all. I'm shaking y'all's shoulders right now. It doesn't make the game's rigged. You're seeing that when it comes to their political preferences, it's become an extension like of the state when it comes to some of these social media companies. Oh, not just the social media companies, these companies in general. We got Coca-Cola and Disney. Talk about Disney of all people trying to lecture people about what's a threat. Like, come on. They know they're hypocrites. They're just counting on the fact that you're not going to hold their feet to the fire. The game's rigged. You're playing a completely rigged game. I don't know why y'all want to share government with these crackheads.